you have to tame that in some ways, right?
Yeah.
But how do you tame it, but also harness it in other ways? You know what I mean? It's like a dance of like having drive and testosterone.
Yeah.
Like I never want to lose that drive, right?
I get this question all the time.
But I also want to be like a great loving parent and partner and all these things.
Yeah.
And not let testosterone drive me in doing damaging things, you know? So.
Well, so from about the age of 35, your testosterone will have started dropping significantly already.
Not mine. Let's go.
One's testosterone tends to drop from that age. So when you do become a dad,
it drops after you become a dad
for the first time. Oxytocin goes up, testosterone drops. You become much more about like cuddling and bonding and wanting to stay in the home and look after the mum and the baby.
Less about like lifting and like hunting, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
If you keep lifting, then you would actually like keep your testosterone levels higher. Also, if the baby sleeps in the same room as you, then your testosterone levels drop even more.
Come on.
So you might want to move out for 3 months to a different bedroom.
Yeah. I've already told her I'm getting my sleep, the first few months. So your testosterone drops
if you sleep in the same room as the baby.
Why is that?
Because the oxytocin's becoming like, higher and higher because you've got this cute little warm thing that smells so nice and is so like vulnerable and dependent on you, and it's like in the room with you the whole 8 hours, of just oxytocin boost.
But are women attracted to men with less testosterone?
They are when they're not fertile, but they are not when they are at peak fertility.
Really?
So mid-cycle, when you're ovulating, you're going to want a bad boy. And the rest of the time, you're going to want a nice man that will stay at home and help you look after the baby.
So if you're not a bad boy when you're at peak fertility as a woman, is that going to hurt the relationship if you don't give women what they want?
Hang on, say that again.
So if a man is not a
bad
boy, when a woman is at peak fertility and the man just wants to cuddle and chill and not be driven by testosterone and give the woman that testosterone feel, will that ultimately hurt the relationship long term if the woman doesn't get what she wants sexually?
I mean, I think if she's chosen him by then. So this is more about when you're like in the choosing phase. Once you've settled down with someone, then you have like a logical conversation about, are we trying for a baby or not, right?
But logic and emotion are two different things.
No, I mean...
in relationships, you might logically say, okay, I'm safe, but emotionally you want something else.
This is a reason that people cheat.
Right, because they're not getting what they want sexually.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do you suppress the thing you want sexually to be like, oh, but he's such a good guy, or he's this, but if he's not giving me what I want, then I'm going to go find it from this other younger testosterone-driven man, right?
You're getting really jealous here.
I'm not getting jealous.
this fantasy younger high testosterone man.
Well, I'm just thinking, is this what women deal with?
I know.
Is this what women deal with?
Yeah, to some extent, more consciously or less consciously, depending on the woman.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
So let me kind of explain the physiology behind it from the research that we know the best, which is in prairie voles. So there are 2 types of voles in America. Marsh or mountain voles.
Voles? What's a vole?
Vole, it's a little rat-like creature.
Prairie dogs?
No.
Not prairie
dogs.
It's
a vole. It's more like a mouse or a rat.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. The ones that live in the marsh or the mountain, they have plenty of food and plenty of shelter, and they're super promiscuous. The ones that moved to the prairie, where there's like scarce food and shelter, they snuggle in and settle down and become monogamous for life.
The same rat, the same mouse, but just living in different areas.
Yeah.
Come on.
So
wait, you tell me rats are monogamous?
These voles. These voles are monogamous. The voles are monogamous.
If they live in the prairie.
If they live in the prairie, but not if they live in the marsh.
But if they have all the food in abundance, they're just...
And lots of female voles that they can go and visit.
They're just little polyamorous voles.
Yeah,
huh?
Because they know that if they get one vole pregnant and she's left on her own to look after her young, they're going to survive because they're well sheltered. There's plenty of food for her to nip out and bring it back to the babies. Yeah, but in the prairie, if he was promiscuous, then the chances of his offspring dying are quite high because she can't defend the nest herself. She can't find enough food for herself and then without help. And so let's extrapolate this. How does this help humans, right? Okay.
Well, which mice are happier? The ones that are more promiscuous or the ones that are coupled?
I think it depends on the vole.
So you think the female mice are happy if they just, are pregnant, but then their partner just leaves?
No.
They're not happy?
No.
How do we know? Can we test that? Okay, so how do we apply this to our lives?
Hang on, there is an answer to that.
Okay.
We test it through levels of oxytocin and vasopressin.
Come on, have we done this? Have people done this?
Yes.
No way. From these mice?
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
And actually, just to be serious, the research has done more to help with loneliness, grief, and heartbreak. But obviously, it's got implications for dating.
Wow.
So because one of the things that we saw with the receptors in the brain is that, like, if I'm in... No, it's got to be the other way around. If you're in love with me, you've got more vasopressin receptors in your nucleus accumbens, which is on the reward circuitry. And then every time you see me, you get a reward. And the longer that we've been dating and stay together and become closer, that reward becomes more intense every time you see me. However, if we then had a prolonged separation, time can downregulate the effect of those receptors. So obviously there are implications for that in a breakup or grief, right?
Right.
But one of the things I think is like so important for dating is that if a couple are getting to know each other, and this is all on like heterosexual couples, the research, then as a woman is sexually interested and liking the guy and enjoying the dating, her oxytocin levels is like slowly starting to go up. When they start actually having sex, she's going to be releasing higher levels of oxytocin every time she orgasms, and that's going to make her bond to the guy much more. If you have sex on the first date, the guy's vasopressin levels will plummet straight away, and all he'll be interested in is testosterone. If you make him wait, his vasopressin and oxytocin levels go up, and then when you do actually have sex, he's already bonded, so it's more likely to become part of a loving relationship.
Wow. So if a woman sleeps with a man on the first date or two, is a man driven to want to bond long-term with that person? No. Why not?
Because the vasopressin levels drop as soon as he has sex.
What does that mean?
So vasopressin is the one that makes the prairie voles monogamous. The higher the levels of that, and that the receptors appear in the reward circuitry of your brain. And so basically, if you see your partner in distress, it affects your brain, those neurons, and you want to comfort her through physical touch. So that's oxytocin. But if you haven't had time for those receptors to appear in the correct place to make you bond, then it's just it goes back to lust. So what I say about love and relationships is that the genetics and the receptors will load the gun, but sexual activity will pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm. So based on neuroscience, if you sleep with someone quickly, you're less likely to bond long-term together. You're more likely to be promiscuous or just not be as interested in that person long-term. Is that right? That's fascinating.
I know.
But you hear a lot of people just be like, just sleep with them on the first day. It's fun. Just have fun. It's all good. But I just feel like you're setting yourself up for letdown.
But if that's what you want, that's fine. But I think
don't expect the guy to keep liking you after that.
No. And don't say it's fine and it's fun if you actually want a long-term relationship, and then be disappointed that they didn't want that too.
Yeah. So the brain chemistry within a man changes if they have sex earlier with a woman.
And it changes in a different way if they wait and they actually create a bond and then
first, and then have sex.
Yeah.
What changes within a woman when they have sex with a man? Do they become more bonded to the person? Yeah.
So for the woman, it's not so much to do with whether they are already in love with the person or not. If they're having sex and they're releasing oxytocin, because we don't have as much testosterone as you. You've got at least 7 to 8 times as much testosterone as me. And that buffers the effect of oxytocin, whereas I would get the full effect of oxytocin.
That's fascinating. So a woman, when they have sex with a man, they're bonding quicker.
Yeah.
But when a man has sex with a woman, he's not necessarily bonding right away. He has to have more time connecting with her until he bonds.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
And then then the oxytocin isn't as buffered by the testosterone. So when you've got the vasopressin and the oxytocin high, then the testosterone has less negating effect on it.
This is fascinating. Okay. What else about neuroscience and relationships should we address, since we're on this topic, that you think is really interesting?
So I think, the whole like visual and smell thing at the start is quite interesting. And then the receptors and hormones to do with bonding and sex is really interesting. I would say that because we live so much longer now, we're using these cave analogies, but to be honest, in cave times, you and I would both be dead.
Die at 30, yeah.
So relationships potentially have to last for longer. And I think there's 2 things to say here. One is that you can use neuroplasticity to keep growing and changing in a way that keeps a relationship fresh. If you are holding on to this fantasy that a relationship has to last forever, even if we're now living till we're 100, right? So I think another way to look at it is about being in the present, not necessarily putting this intense pressure on yourself, your partner, and the relationship that it has to last forever.
Yeah.
Understanding that even if a relationship breaks down, and that's obviously difficult to handle at the time, that there are potential possibilities for something that's more right for you at a different age than maybe a choice you made in your 20s. So, nothing, you don't have to be a neuroscientist to say those 2 things. It's kind of like just using your brain to understand that there's a certain amount of time. There are, benefits to being in long-lasting relationships, but there are possible alternatives as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to go back to what we were talking about a little bit before in terms of 3D, 5D, brain states. I guess my question is, what is we're in the 3-dimensional world right now, 3D. But from my understanding, 5D allows us to manifest faster. It's like kind of skipping time. It's not saying you have to push things forward in the physical material world. You're jumping time in a sense. I don't know if that makes sense. And when we use our brain to think about something, we're sending a signal into space, into time, space, our environment, consciousness. We're putting a signal out into the world. And maybe sometimes when we think about someone, we're sending that signal to the other person, right? Potentially. And if we send a signal out consistently, we're signaling to the world. And if we fill our hearts with love and gratitude and harmony and peace in a beautiful state, a flourishing state of abundance, we're signaling something out and we're drawing it back in through the heart. Is that a bunch of baloney, or is that something that you can back by science to support our energy, our thoughts, our way of being, and connect it to the actions we take on a daily basis?
That's a really beautiful way that you've put it, and a great question as well. And so I just want to start that story with a few things like, if you think about what you and I watched as sci-fi when we were kids, so much of that is true now.
It's happening.
Yeah. And things that we used to think about the brain, like one way that we used to treat mental illnesses was by doing a frontal lobotomy or cutting the corpus callosum that, like bridges the left and right hemispheres. And we thought we were doing a good thing. I have actually given patients electroconvulsive therapy in my career, so not that long ago. And not because I wanted to, but I had a patient that came to me and said, I've got a long history of depression. And when it gets to the point that I don't want to eat and drink, the only thing that helps me quick enough that I don't have to suffer for weeks is ECT. And I said, are you sure you don't want to try? There are some modern antidepressants now that, have an effect in a couple of weeks. And she was like, no, I'm not eating, I'm not drinking, I'm totally depressed, I just want ECT. So I was like, okay. But we don't generally do that so much anymore. So our understanding of psychiatry, psychology, and then with the advent of brain scanning, how healthy brains function, has come a long way. Even at this conference at the weekend, all the speakers were amazing, but a few of them mentioned right brain, left brain. And I said, I'm sorry, but I've got to stand up here and say we really can't talk about the brain like that anymore. It's so much more complex and sophisticated with these amazing networks and subsystems, and it's just doing a big disservice to the brain to talk about.
It's all connecting.
Yeah. So in that sense, the research that most backs up what you're speaking to is, we can't prove all of that yet, but how we're getting there is through two main ways. One is looking at what happens in the brain with psychedelics, and how they can induce neuroplasticity. So I keep my eye on the research at Johns Hopkins, because it's like, to me, the best lab that's looking into that stuff. And so there are really great benefits from 1 or 2 doses spaced 1 to 6 months apart of certain psychedelics in mental illnesses like depression and schizophrenia, potentially in grief as well. But what's really interesting to me is that everything that you see that a psychedelic can achieve relatively quickly, you can achieve yourself by sleeping right, eating right, breathing right, and meditating.
Let's go. I'm so happy you're saying this, because, I have a lot of friends that swear by psychedelics. They say like, oh, this changed my life and it's opened me up and it's allowed me to see things differently. But I've been to many meditation intensive retreats that I feel like I'm seeing visions, and I'm seeing like geometric shapes and pulsating and all these different things that we are creating ourselves within ourselves. It's the chemicals, the pharmacy that we have in our brain and body that can manifest and create these things are so powerful that I think if trained continually, it's hard work, but if trained properly and continually with the right teaching, can have just as powerful effects, if not more powerful, healing benefits than an outside pharmacy. That's just my belief. I may be wrong, but it sounds like from your research that's true. I'm so glad you said that, because I know it's particularly popular in LA as well. Everyone's talking about microdosing and I know ayahuasca and everything. And my concern is that, and they're swearing by it, and it's helping them, immensely. And I'm like, cool, if it's helping you, cool. But can you try other things too that aren't changing your brain chemistry from the outside in, but rather from the inside out? I think there's a couple of other things around that. One is that if it's not in a hospital or a lab under like proper supervision with qualified people, then how do you know how pure the source of whatever you're taking is? In the 60s, there were so many bad like LSD trips that happened to people. So what happens if something goes wrong and there's no one trained there that can help you? Neuroplasticity, as I remember we discussed before, is not always good. It can be bad. You obsess over a breakup. You're just wiring into your brain. You stay in it for years, this grief. And so can these psychedelics do that as well. They can keep you trapped in a depressive state. They can even they can make things more negative, because how do you know where that mushroom or whatever it is that you're taking is going to induce neuroplasticity in your brain? How are you directing that if you've got no experience of that? So that is a bit of a concern. When they did the ayahuasca research at Johns Hopkins, they used the pure ayahuasca. When you do it in ceremony, it's mixed with something that makes you purge. Makes you throw up and feel sick. And have diarrhea potentially as well. Yeah. So the purging... I don't want that. I know. Who wants to go through that? It completely puts me off. Some people don't mind it so much, but it's done because it symbolizes a massive release. Yes. And that's part of... And a rebirth. Yes, right? Exactly. But you're taking something that you don't need to take. You could just take the ayahuasca and have the actual mental process without purging. Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, I'd volunteer for Johns Hopkins, but not not for the ceremony.
So what do you think is the best way to rewire our subconscious mind to benefit us to feel healthier, happier, and whole as human beings versus taking drugs or some type of psychedelics?
So I wanted to put that together with the research on both the Buddhist monks and the US Marines that, that Amishi Jha did, the mindfulness based.
Amishi, she's great.
Yeah. Training with. So all of that research shows the impact of different types of meditation on the brain. And however, so before we get to the meditation even, this temple needs to be in the best, it needs to be clean, it needs to be polished. And so that means that you're sleeping sufficiently, you're eating a really good nutrient-dense diet with the good fats and enough protein.
Fiber, everything.
All of that. The dark-skinned foods, that I think I've mentioned before. That you are not sedentary. Not necessarily that you do lots of high-intensity exercise, but that you move, you breathe, you breathe deeply. That you're well hydrated. Then we come on to the meditation part. And meditation is, I remember even the first time I spoke about it at a bank thinking, am I going to get away with this? But people found it really interesting. And then it really was about sitting cross-legged with your eyes closed and, doing a certain kind of form of meditation, whether it's guided or breath. So the nature piece is that because we've existed in the palette of nature since we were in the cave, we do find it, most people find it beautiful unless you've got like terrible allergies or something. When you walk past trees, particularly certain trees that you have a lot of in LA, I've noticed. So pines, firs, cedars, cypresses, palms, they release something called phytoncides that actually interact with your immune system and boost the release of natural killer cells that help you to fight off cancers.
Trees. Wow. So being in nature helps you fight off cancers.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the beauty of it as well. So that's a chemical thing that's going on. But
not just the actual chemicals that are being released from those trees, but you actually being in the environment and viewing it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's beholding beauty. Making beauty is also important. So things like singing, playing an instrument, dancing, drumming, chanting. Because if you think about it, in the cave, we danced and drummed and chanted, but we didn't have resources to do anything that wasn't essential to our survival. So I still haven't quite worked out why, but those things are obviously essential to our survival.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to, I guess, reprogramming your subconscious mind. Eating, sleeping, what was the other thing you said? Meditating, breathing.
Well, I want to come to that one last. So the physical foundations are eating, sleeping, drinking, and breathing. Then when we come into the realm of mindfulness, we're taking it now to the next level and saying it's not just necessarily sitting down and doing a meditation, but it's spending time in nature, it's beholding beauty, it's gratitude.
Art.
It's art, it's music, it's